Uh, Loren Murray is an expert, a world expert on radiation, and she was an expert witness at the Tokyo International Tribunal for War Crimes in Afghanistan. Today, Loren Murray has agreed to join us. Her point of view that we're going to explore is that the Japan earthquake and the nuclear events which took place at the nuclear power plant are in fact intentional, tectonic, and nuclear warfare. Today, I want to mention is Sunday, March 20th, 2011. The events in Japan, Japan earthquake, took place on 3/11, March 11th. Welcome,
Thank you.
Loren. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, there are so many different aspects of this that in the course of this program, I think we'll be going over all of them. And many people have been talking about the fact that this earthquake and the subsequent nuclear power plant explosions, you know, are part of an intentional nuclear attack. But you actually predicted this back in 2004 in a hallmark article in the Japan Times. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I've been on 20 speaking tours in Japan in the last 10 years, um, warning the Japanese public about the danger of nuclear power plants and their new nuclear reprocessing plant in the north called Rokasho. And it was a very, very wonderful experience. I got to see Japan and to meet Japanese that you would never meet on a tour or a vacation or a holiday. I mean, really working with them on important issues. And I was able to use my background in the geosciences, my uh, extensive studies on the biological effects of radiation and on wildlife as well, including in the oceans. And I also met nuclear power plant engineers who were whistleblowers in Japan, and they gave me diagrams. They they educated me about the hazards of nuclear power in Japan and the specific weaknesses that are inherent to the nuclear power reactor and generation of electricity. So I was very, very well informed and traveled widely in Japan and worked at all levels with the common people, with the Ainu, who are the indigenous people of Japan, with um, scientists, Japanese scientists. They're some of the best in the world, with members of the Japanese parliament. So I worked from the bottom to the top and back to the bottom, and it was a tremendous education for me, perhaps more than what I even gave them. But certainly it was a very positive exchange. And as a result, I met many reporters, and one of them asked me to write an article about nuclear power plants and the danger of earthquakes in Japan. So I wrote this article using even diagrams that the whistleblowers had given me inside nuclear power plants and the danger of Japan as an island arc system sitting on top of four tectonic plates, these huge ocean plates that were all shoving each other around underneath Japan. And so it would be sort of like you or I, Alfred, trying to climb on top of a gunny sack with four pigs inside struggling with each other and trying to stay on the top of that gunny sack. Well, that's exactly what Japan is trying to do in this tremendously dynamic oceanic tectonic setting. It's extremely dangerous. There is an 8.5 earthquake every 5 years in Japan, or greater than 8.5, and yet all of their nuclear power plants are on the ocean in order to get tremendous amounts of cooling water for the plants, and they are sitting on subduction zones and tectonic plate margins, boundaries that are very, very dangerous. And also, they have erupting volcanoes in Japan. So I put all of that in the article. It was a very interesting article to write, and lo and behold, on March 11th, 2011, just about 6 years later, my article became reality.
Now, there are a number of possibilities there. One is that the earthquake, the 9.0 or 9.1 earthquake itself, was one of the recurring earthquakes, not 8.5, but was a mega event, but in that recurring zone. The other possibility was what you and I have been exploring, and that is a series of, in fact, tectonic attacks, earthquake attacks, using the force of earthquakes as a military type attack. And we've looked at a number of earthquakes: China in 2008, Haiti in 2010, Chile in 2010, perhaps others. That possibility is that the Japan earthquake of March 2011 was in fact a military strike, a tectonic attack using HAARP or some other mechanism to trigger that earthquake. Which do you think it was?
Well, the evidence that I've gathered up to this time indicates it was not a natural earthquake. It was a modified natural earthquake. In other words, it was initiated by external energy that was not inherent to the fault zone. And this is known as tectonic warfare, and it's part of the HAARP air-based, space-based, land-based, sea-based weapon system that was secretly developed during the Cold War by the Soviet Union and the United States together. The money for the development of the secret program, which was a huge, vast amount of money, was done. It was carried out under the cover of Star Wars and missile defense, and in fact, they were secretly developing this vast system to weaponize the energy that is inherent in natural processes. So, first, man weaponized chemical energy. That was the Chinese when they developed gunpowder to produce a shock wave that would destroy things. Then in World War II, under the Manhattan Project, man weaponized nuclear energy, which was much, much, much greater amounts of energy than chemical energy. And they produced the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the candles burning behind me are around a Madonna a Japanese Madonna figurine from Nagasaki that was a gift to me. And it has the Japanese robes and clothes and style from the neck down, but the Asian woman who represents Mary has the Catholic Italian style scarf or draping over her head. And so the first nuclear weapons were dropped on a human population, were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Once the nuclear weapons were tested, it was found that they were pretty messy because they left a very, very politically incorrect mess behind, with lots of dead people and horrible radiation illnesses for all future generations and those who were exposed. And of course, the political backwash around the world. It was the U.S. really didn't want to do something like that again. It was very unpopular. So they immediately began, after World War II, to develop a new weapon system that would release tremendous amounts of energy for an even bigger shock wave. And what they did was develop tectonic warfare, weather warfare, mind control, missile defense, all of these very, very sophisticated applications in the HAARP weapon system. And I'd like to mention the Space Preservation Act in the House that was introduced by Congressman Dennis Kucinich in 2002, H.R. 2977, which you had a part in, and that is probably the best and most succinct document that really describes the HAARP system in a nutshell.
Right. I think that bill was actually introduced in October of 2001 and was, to my knowledge, the only piece of legislation in the U.S. Congress to date which has purported to even acknowledge and regulate the HAARP system. So
it was important for another reason.